Hey now folks, today we're going to take a look at a little card game from Victory Point Games called Trifecta. This is a 2-player only game where the goal is to complete 3 rows of cards. You're going to have these different rows of cards that you're going to have to get to a number between 21 and 26 by playing cards out on each of these rows. And each row has its own different rules, and some of those rules can be flipped, and there are cards that are going to count as special cards and maybe have some special abilities. So let's go ahead and do a brief overview of the game, then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Trifecta. This is a 2-player card game where the goal is to be the first person to reach 3 points. You have your deck of cards here that each player is going to get 2 cards from at the beginning of the game. And in that deck, you actually have most of the traditional card numbers from 1 to 10, and then Jack, King, Queen, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. But there's only 3 different suits/colors. You have purple, blue, and red. You also have these 3 cards out here which represent the start of the rows of cards. When you play cards, you're going to be playing them on either side of these 3 cards, lining them up out here like so. And what each of these represents is different depending on, they each have a different special effect on how you can play cards on each of them. So the first thing that you do on your turn, turns will alternate, you're going to draw a card from the deck, and then you have to do one of the following things. You can either add a card face up to one of the rows in your player area, which is your side of the table, or you can add a card face up to one of the rows in your opponent's playing area, and whichever place that you play, whatever player area that you play it on, it has to be as close to the center as possible. If you don't want to play a card, your other option is that you can discard your entire hand and draw 2 new cards. Now, there are special rules for how you place cards depending on which row that you're actually playing them onto. For the plus symbol, every card played to that row has to be at equal or higher rank than the card that was previously played before it. The first card played can be of any rank. For the minus symbol, it's the opposite. Each card played has to be of equal or lower rank than the previous card. The first card can be of any rank. The middle card has to do with the different suits. In this case, each card played in that row has to have the same suit and color in that player's area. The first card played can be of any suit and color. So just to give you an example, if I choose to play a card on my turn, I could go ahead and play this 9 blue over on my opponent's side, on his side of the plus card, which is bad for him because that means that he starts with a 9 and he has to play cards that are higher than that for the rest of his cards. But I could play the 8 purple over on my side, on the minus side, and that's not too bad because now I have a lot of room to grow outwards because the cards have to go down. Now, you might be saying, why are you doing all this? Like, what is the point of playing these cards this way? Well, there's a limit of 5 cards that can be played on either side in a player's player area of each row. When you get to that 5th card that is placed, if that number is the total sum of all the cards that are placed there is between 21 and 26, so greater than 20 but less than 27, then the player who played that card is going to receive a point. Whether or not they get a point for doing that, however, all of those cards are going to get discarded. So if you fail, you don't lose anything, you just have to discard and you're going to have to start again. Now, the order of the cards in their ranks are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, and King. However, some of these cards have special abilities depending on how you play them. The ace is a wild card. It can be any suit and rank that you want it to be. So if you play it in the suit row, then every other card that's played here still has to be of the same suit, but this one can just take up a spot and it can count as whatever the rest of the cards are. If you play it on the plus or minus sign, it can fill in whatever gap you want it to be, and then the next card that's played after that can be whatever rank you want it to be. The other 2 special cards are the king. Now when you play the king and you place it in the plus symbol row, the central card gets flipped over to show the minus side. Ah yes, these are 2-sided cards. I guess I should have mentioned that before. And now that changes the way that this row is played. And conversely, if you play the 2 next to the minus symbol, it's going to flip it over to the plus symbol. And obviously, if that happens during the course of the game, someone else can come along and do the same thing and flip them back and forth depending on their whim. So remember that as soon as a card hits a row hits its 5th card on either side, it's going to pop and you'll either score a point or you won't. And like I said in the beginning of all this, the first person to get to 3 points is going to be the winner. That's Trifecta.
Now, I'm certainly not averse to small, light card games. In fact, there's a huge amount of my collection that are either small, light card games or light card games that just happen to be in a bigger box. I really enjoy card games, but for me, Trifecta fell a little bit flat. First and foremost, this is not as much to do with the game designer as it is with the company, Victory Point Games themselves. The card quality is just terrible. Now, this is a common thing with a lot of Victory Point games, including one of my favorite games, Darkest Night, which is just a magnificent game, but has poor card quality. The difference is that in a game like Darkest Night, where it has wonderful artwork, and there's a lot of other iconography and text, and there's all these different things going on, and you have the board and the little standees and all this other stuff distracting you, you don't notice the card stock as much or the quality. But all this game is how many cards are there exactly? 45 cards. That is the entirety of the game, and the artwork is not very good on them. They almost look exactly like normal playing cards. So when the cards are cut unevenly, when all the what sparse design there is uneven, and the borders are not trimmed, and there's little white marks around the borders, all these different things, it's very noticeable and very irritating. And coming from being in printing for 16, 17 years now, and printing and marketing, knowing that you can lease a very small but very effective cutting machine that will cut these cards very straight and with a lot of quality, you can lease them very affordably, I don't understand why this is still acceptable for Victory Point Game, which has been around for quite some time and does a lot of games and a lot of business now. You're running a business, and appearance is important. I'm telling you, I have tried to get people to play Darkest Night at big meetups that I go to, in my own meetups as well, and people will look at the components or know Victory Point Games by reputation and say, I'm not going to play it. Why would I play that over this gorgeously illustrated and beautifully produced game from Days of Wonder or Asmodee or any other number of companies that just produce a better quality game? It's important, especially for a game like this, and you drop the ball there. But that's just on the publisher. So let's go to the design of the game and the mechanics. It's interesting at first. I like the idea of, I am actually kind of a fan of blackjack because of its simplicity. So, and that's kind of a cool game. If I was going to gamble in Vegas, that's what I would do. So I like the idea of trying to get to a certain number but not going over it. So it's a little bit different in this game, but it's kind of the same idea. You're trying to get to 21 to 26, but you're following the rules of the row and how the cards can be placed. And I do like that. It's like you're playing different games of blackjack with different rules. So on the surface, that's kind of neat, but it leaves a lot lacking. First off, I don't like that you have to cycle through your hand of 2 cards to try to get the cards that you need. It just, when you do that, it feels like the game just comes to a screeching halt and like you were able to do nothing for that brief amount of time. And it feels like you're being set back, so that's not very exciting. The fact that there's, again, this could be played with a normal deck of cards. It's kind of the sad part there, but there's not more cards with special abilities. There's not more things to liven up the game and to change the way the game plays. Really, all you can do is just change the polarity of some of the cards to either plus or minus, or make it so that you have a wild card. That's it. That's the sum entirety of the special powers that you have, and there's just not enough other stuff in the game to make up that difference. I don't know. I mean, it's just not an exciting game. I never felt like that competitive head-to-head, like just me and my single opponent, trying to get into each other's brains and outthink that other person, because all that you can do really is on your turn decide, am I going to continue this or am I going to try to screw them over by playing a card there? But if you do that every turn, then no one gets anywhere and the game drags on a bit too long. There needs to be more meaningful choices and decisions to make, special powers to use, and there's just none of that here. It is very simple. It is very light. You'll get it up and going very, very quickly, and it's not a terrible game by any stretch of the imagination, but this is going to strictly be relegated to the type of game that you're going to play. This sounds awful, but the type of game that you're going to play with your grandma. It just is, with your grandma or grandpa, and with little kids. But even little kids, I think, would want more colorful artwork. So This one's not for me. I know that there's going to be an audience for people who just love these very light, very simple, very abstract card games. But for me, I need just a little something more. Just a little something, a little bluffing, a little negotiation to just, like a game like Love Letter, a little deduction, something just to brighten it up a bit. There just wasn't enough there for me. That is Trifecta from Victory Point Games. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.